Welcome to the Aaron Harber Show. My special guest today is Max Baucus, the former U.S. Ambassador to China and former U.S. Senator. This is part two of our special two-part series. Max, again, great having you on the show.
It's always a pleasure.
So we were talking about ambassadorships and your tenure for 3 years as the U.S. Ambassador to China, not that long ago. What was kind of your daily routine, or what happened each day? What was the pace like?
Well, I love the job. It was just so busy, so much going on. It's interesting, we Americans have 2,300 people working for us in the U.S. Embassy in China. And it's half in Beijing, the capital, half around the country, different consulates. And so it's managing all that. In addition to the State Department, there are 50 other separate U.S. agencies in the U.S. Embassy, like USDA, or FDA, or Energy Department, whatnot. So it's managing all that, not just the State Department.
So the this is separate from the 2,300?
No, including the
2,300. So you're talking the FDA people, or who may be checking food quality.
Exactly.
So we have 2,300 federal government employees in China.
That's right.
That's extraordinary. What about the nomination process today? How does it differ today than just 10 years ago?
Well, I don't know that it's changed that much, frankly. My nomination went through very quickly because they wanted somebody over there right away.
Right, and you also you had to be approved by your colleagues in the Senate, all of whom on both sides I know love you. So
there are 3 people who didn't vote. No, it's true. The role has changed a little bit. Back a long time ago, when you were an ambassador, you were representing your country, and you were making a lot of decisions, so on and so forth. Today, because of the media and the communications technologies are so efficient, you're constant communication with the State Department in Washington, D.C., with the National Security Council in the White House, and so you're kind of getting your marching orders, but you're also trying to influence them, tell them which ends up.
So how would you define success for a U.S. ambassador? What does it mean to be a successful U.S. ambassador?
I think essentially it's to, when one has left a country that feels better about the United States than when one arrived. And that was my goal, and especially with President Xi Jinping.
So one of the things I've noticed fairly well into President Trump's tenure, there seem to be a lot of ambassadorial positions that still are not filled. Yeah. Is that because your former colleagues in the Senate are slow to approve, or what's the challenge?
Well, it's to be honest, I think the Trump administration has been a little slow at the switch based on inexperience. They came in. He didn't think he was going to get elected, so we didn't have a team that really knew which end was up. And so it's they're inexperienced, and it's been hard to get good people. To be honest, it is harder for them to get good people today. A lot of people today are really not sure they want to serve in this administration because of the inconsistency and so on and so forth. Now, sometimes the Senate will slow up a nomination for political purposes, nothing to do with the quality of the ambassador. That sometimes happens.
What about the security today? Is it more dangerous to be a U.S. ambassador?
It depends on the country. Ambassador in London, Germany, a lot of security. In China, virtually none. It's because the whole country is secure. There's soldiers everywhere. In many respects, it's the safest country to be in. My wife could walk on the street anywhere in the middle of Beijing. It's safe.
At any time of day or
almost
night?
Any time. Almost any time. It's safe because it's close to a police state.
That's a trade-off a lot of Chinese people, though, have accepted.
It's a trade-off.
In terms of economic progress.
That's true. That's the Faustian bargain. As long as the government's making sure their incomes are rising, they don't question the legitimacy of the government.
What's China's role in terms of its relationship with North Korea?
China is the 800-pound gorilla.
Maybe 2,000-pound gorilla.
Maybe they're 1.3 billion pound gorilla.
And only 20 million people in North Korea.
Yeah. So any North Korean solution is going to involve China. China's going to make sure of that.
What does China want?
China wants stability. China wants stability on their terms. And their terms means, stability in their terms means, stable peninsula. And on their terms means probably Kim Jong-un's in control They don't want those Americans in control of the peninsula. So they'll do their best to make sure whatever agreement there is between the Kim and the United States and China and South Korea and whomever is one where they got a little more influence than they had in the past, but it's a stable influence.
So would they ever like to see the two Koreas unified?
They wouldn't mind that, as long as the unification is not one where South Korea, i.e. the United States, is in charge.
Well, given that South Korea has double the population of North Korea, isn't that likely?
That has to be worked out. From
So
Chinese perspective, they're not going to be too wild about that.
So what kind of configuration in terms of a government, a governing entity would not have South Korea in charge? And would China, I'm going to complicate that, would China accept a kind of one person, one vote concept where obviously then South Korea would dominate in exchange for the denuclearization of the peninsula, which I assume China would prefer, and maybe the withdrawal of U.S. troops from the area, or most of the U.S. troops from the area, if not all?
Well, I think short term China would like to see a peace treaty between North Korea and South Korea.
I think that's going to happen.
Well, hopefully, down the road. We know this thing's not over yet. It's very, very difficult and complicated to denuclearize. It's going to take 10, 20 years. It's so complicated.
Why so long?
Because it's so technical. I mean, you start out with, okay, are you going to freeze? What are you going to freeze? How do you inspect? What are you going to do with the plutonium? Is it going to be used for proliferation or not? Transferred for peaceful purposes, peaceful reactors? I mean, it's really complicated.
So you were involved with China's entry into the World Trade Organization.
Correct.
In 2000. What was your involvement then? And does the Chinese government appreciate that?
They do. And they remind me of that often. And they thank me.
I can see you at a banquet where the Chinese host would get up and say something about, this is the senator who helped us get into the World Trade.
And I did that, I worked for that because I felt it's better that China be part of the international team, part of an international organization rather than outside.
All right, well I think in the end we'll all come to that conclusion if we haven't,
hope so.
We haven't already.
We'll see.
We'll find out. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back with Max in just a moment.
For information on how to help promote civil and mutually respectful discourse and support expansion of the distribution of our programs, please email info@harbertv.com.
I'm Aaron Harber, host of The Aaron Harber Show. You can follow the show on Twitter for instant notification of new episodes, live event invitations, outtakes, and behind-the-scene photos. And tweet us your topic and guest suggestions today.
The Rex Howell Broadcaster of the Year Award recognizes an individual who, through leadership, skill, and dedication, is advancing the broadcast industry in our state and our nation. Tonight, we honor Aaron Harber. Aaron has worked extensively in the media as a host, producer, political and economic commentator, and columnist. Today, the Aaron Harber Show is the focus of his media involvement. Aaron, it is a privilege to present you with the Rex Howell Broadcaster of the Year Award. Congratulations.
Just make journalism great again. I'm Aaron Harber, host of The Aaron Harber Show. Find us on Facebook to get all the latest updates, see behind-the-scene photos, and make comments and ask me questions. You can see episodes before their TV broadcast, so like the show today.
The Aaron Harber Show may be viewed 24/7 at no charge from any location in the world at harbertv.com.
Welcome back to the show. Remember, this is part 2 of our special 2-part series with Max Baucus, the former U.S. Senator from Montana and former U.S. Ambassador to China. So, Max, trade obviously is a big issue in China and in our country as well and around the world. When you look at developed nations, almost everyone has a value-added tax or some form of it, where when their manufacturers export goods, they get the tax credited back, which gives them a huge advantage over us. Why don't we have a value-added tax? Wouldn't that help our manufacturing base? And wouldn't those revenues allow us to either reduce or get rid of the federal income tax, or raise the exemption level so high that not only poor people, but a big chunk of the middle class would not have federal income taxes, solve our challenges, you know, about Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid? Why don't we do that?
Many people suggest a value-added tax for all the reasons you just indicated, and I spent a lot of time thinking about that myself. I think there's value to a value-added tax, but you have to be careful. Want to make sure that we don't add to the income gap between the wealthy and the less wealthy. You know, in the United States, as in China, that gap between the wealthy and the less wealthy is widening. And so any tax arrangement we have, I think, should be one that does not widen that, but hopefully diminishes it a bit. They also have to look at the old things like, what about food, necessities, and all that kind of thing. Should they be subject to the tax as well? But the main thing for me is just making sure it's fair, and that makes, it's not driving an ideology for the purpose of the ideology, but rather something that's fair so we can get on with our lives.
All right, speaking of fair and people at the lower end of the economic rung, Obamacare versus a single payer. And I know you have thoughts on both, but you saw and helped Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, get passed. You're watching it being disassembled. Should Democrats have gone for a single payer, universal coverage when they had the House, Senate, and the presidency?
It's a good question. I was chairman of the Finance Committee at the time, the committee with primary jurisdiction overriding the Affordable Care Act. And so it's a moment I'm very proud of. We and the country at the time seized the initiative that as our country did not have anything resembled a healthcare system. It was chaos. It was just madness. Different providers going different directions, providing some healthcare and making some money, but it was just chaos. So we seized the moment to try to get something going here, some way to put together a healthcare system that's fair for the country, to get more people covered so they have health insurance, because about 40 million people back then did not have health insurance. Add to that, want to reduce the rate of increase of costs, because healthcare costs are just going up so much. So we need a really good start. My view was, and this was my plan, and I said this constantly, that everything is on the table. Everything is on the table. Because once somebody takes something off the table, then someone else can rationalize, well, what about me? Take mine off the table. Everything's on the table, but for single pay. And I decided I'm not going to allow single payer to be on the table. Why? Because I don't think America's ready for that. We're a young country. It's go west, young man. We're free competition, free enterprise. We're not Sweden. We're not France. We're not Germany. We're not Great Britain. We're not Japan. We're different. So I try to find a way. The phrase I coined was a uniquely American solution. We got to find something that's American, and in between a little bit. And the ACA, Affordable Care Act, was what that was. Today, however, as I think much more about where we are now, which is not where we were back then, that's 10 years ago, now I think we should pay much more attention to some form of single pay system, some universal coverage, primarily because our healthcare costs are just way too high. There's way too much waste. Too few people, there's still too many people don't get health care. In other countries pay much, much less per capita for their health care than do we, and their fancy term is outcomes is better in many respects than they are here. Now, how do you get there, assuming that's correct? We're not going to get there during this administration, because this administration is divisive. It's not one that wants to bring people together. But this is a good time for the groundwork to be laid, a lot of honest questions asked, a lot of good research undertaken to figure out how we prepare ourselves for the day when, 5 years from now maybe, 10 years from now, we are in a position to begin to enact some form of single pay system. There are all kinds of single pay systems. Different countries do it differently, but still we have to move in that direction for the reasons I indicated.
All right, for the last topic for the show, I have a lot of questions I want to ask you about leadership. because, of course, you've provided leadership. You've seen leadership at all levels, whether it be in government, in politics, in the military, in business. So I'd be really interested in your thoughts about what makes a great leader. What does it mean to be a great leader?
It's more art than science, I think. A great leader has a gravitas, who is very wise, very thoughtful. A great leader is one who has a good, strong vision, and a vision that's sustainable. And by sustainable, it has to be one that's good for the people in his organization, good for the people that they work with, because otherwise it's going to not do too well. A great leader has to be one who listens. He or she has his vision, but certainly has to listen to different points of view. Also one that's, once the vision is in place, has to be adaptable, because times change. And listening to people and staying true to your vision and moving forward. A good leader also has to delegate a lot. That means hire the very best people possible. Take the time to find the very best people possible, because you're going to depend on them. And then give them authority. And you got to check on them. The old thing is, when you expect, you got to inspect. But to give them a lot of authority, a delegation, and then you got to get together time to time, see how we're doing, and you have to make sure all the different parts of the organization are on as much as possible. Even though you've delegated to them, they work, they're kind of the same page. You got the same vision. Two great books I've read recently. One is about Alan Mulally, who was a Ford CEO, pulled Ford back together a few years ago. Another one is General McChrystal, when he took over in Afghanistan and in Iraq. My God, it was a mess. And the principles are the same. The book about Alan Mulally and what he did when he took over Ford, and General McChrystal did over in Afghanistan and Iraq too. But I just, you know what when you see it. And people who work in organizations know it when they see it. And when they see it, they're going to work harder, and they're going to be really proud, and that gets better results.
Yeah, they also know it when they see bad or poor leadership.
People are pretty smart. People are pretty smart. They can sense, people sense a lot.
Can you teach someone to be a great leader?
I think you can give a person with great potential a lot of ideas and the tools. But you kind of got to want to be a person who likes people and works with people, and be a virtuous person in the first place. If you don't have that, it's a bit difficult. It's like running for office. I mean, if you really want to, if you care for people, if you really like people, you want to do right by people that you're working for, you're going to do better. But you can't be taught if you don't care that much about people.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back with Max in just a moment.
For information on how to help promote civil and mutually respectful discourse and support expansion of the distribution of our programs, please email info@harbertv.com.
I'm Aaron Harber, host of The Aaron Harber Show. Find us on Facebook to get all the latest updates, see behind-the-scene photos, and make comments and ask me questions. You can see episodes before their TV broadcast, so like the show today.
The Rexall Broadcaster of the Year Award recognizes an individual who, through leadership, skill, and dedication, is advancing the broadcast industry in our state and our nation. Tonight, we honor Aaron Harber. Aaron has worked extensively in the media as a host, producer, political and economic commentator, and columnist. Today, the Aaron Harber Show is the focus of his media involvement. Aaron, it is a privilege to present you with the Rexall Broadcaster of the Year Award. Congratulations.
Just make journalism great again. I'm Aaron Harber, host of The Aaron Harber Show. You can follow the show on Twitter for instant notification of new episodes, live event invitations, outtakes, and behind-the-scene photos. And tweet us your topic and guest suggestions today.
Join me and watch the Aaron Harber Show.
Watch the Aaron Harber Show.
Watch the Aaron Harber Show.
Watch the Aaron Harper Show.
Watch the Aaron Harber Show.
I'm Reverend Jesse Jackson. Watch the Aaron Harper Show and keep hope alive.
I'm Aaron Harber, host of the Aaron Harber Show. I very much would like to hear from you about the program, so please send me an email with your thoughts. You can suggest what topics I should cover, what guests I should invite to be on the show, or even what specific questions you would like me to ask. This is your program, so send your suggestions to aaron@harbortv.com. I promise to personally read every one, so email me today. And most of all, thanks for watching.
The Aaron Harber Show may be viewed 24/7 at no charge from any location in the world at harbortv.com.
Welcome back to the show. This is our final segment with Max Baucus. All right, Max, who in your mind and your opinion have been the greatest leaders, just from your perspective of what makes a great leader? You go back in history, whatever you want, any field. Give me a couple examples and tell me why.
Well, this is just off the top of my head, and I'm reading a book now about the Civil War. I'm amazed at Abraham Lincoln. How smart he was, thoughtful he was, and a politician. He had to deal with so many different forces that within the Republican Party, for example, and in the South and the Senate, the Congress. I mean, it's stunning.
And the Republican Party was his party.
The Republican Party was his party. That's correct. And it was just, I recommend it. It's a great book, frankly. Another, obviously, is our first president, George Washington, partly because he refused another term. I mean, that's powerful. And that says a lot. It's kind of inspiring, frankly, for subsequent leaders who aspire to that job. Oh gosh, in business there are a lot of people. We all know who they are in our communities too. Sometimes I think we overlook real leaders in our communities who had, whether they're school boards or whether they're teachers. There are a lot of wonderful teachers, and our service organizations or whatnot. I think it really is important for us to build up those people because we're closer to them. There's more we can do about it, and that's it's going to mean a lot to them and a lot more to all those that they work with.
So what about women in leadership? I mean, clearly studies that have been done say that if you have more diversity on your boards of directors, in terms of women, people of color, that those companies do better. Actually, even in Hollywood, the movies with diversity tend to do better as well. Why do we have so few women leaders at the top of corporate America, and even whether it be in the White House, in the Senate, in the House of Representatives? And I know some of the numbers have gotten better, but we seem to be a long way.
No, we're not doing terribly well. It's tough for a woman to be the person on top. It is hard. If you look at people in modern history who've done very well, they tend to be kind of gritty, kind of tough, and exude leadership in the sense they get things done. One of my favorites, former senator, is Barbara Mikulski. She's kind of a gritty person. I mean, she got stuff done. Margaret Thatcher, she was tough. Indira Gandhi, someone else was tough. It's they tend to be women who kind of no nonsense, can't be trifled with, and that's harder to find that these days. We're still a sexist society. There's no question about that, and it's hard. And men are sort of clubbish. They like to be among themselves still. It's not easy.
So how do we change that?
Women who aspire to leadership have to just believe in themselves even more, even though the bar is higher, even though it's harder for them to succeed than it might be from a man, all things being equal. But when they do, they're recognized and really appreciated. People like that. Men like it.
Well, I guess we'll hopefully the Me Too movement and things like that.
I think the Me Too movement is very powerful here. It's amazing. And oh gosh, Donald Trump may have opened the door here for Me Too, as what's his name, Harvey Weinstein. He's accelerated the Me Too movement, and I'm glad to see it.
All right, well, over the next several years, we'll see what kind of impact it has. I want to talk to you about a concept I call marginal leadership. And that is, there are a lot of people in positions of power. There are a lot of people with extraordinary wealth. There are foundations that oversee billions of dollars of resources, and many of them are trying to do good things. They're addressing specific issues in different countries. It may be malaria or tuberculosis or the impact of climate change in that community. But then there are some, to me, kind of tsunami-like phenomenon that are occurring that in my opinion, overwhelm that. And I'll use climate change. If you're trying to help someone in Bangladesh learn how to farm, but the reality is in 20 years, that area is all going to be flooded. What's the point of investing millions of dollars in that? Or if you're fighting a disease, but because of some major phenomenon that you're not addressing, that disease is actually going to multiply by an order of magnitude in 3 or 4 decades. It seems to me that there are a lot of people with power and resources that are doing good things, but they're comfortable. And I'm curious on your take of where are people and when are people in those positions willing to really take huge risks and take on the biggest challenges and use a substantial portion of those resources to address those challenges, knowing that they may fail?
Well, that's a very good question. I think there are 2 answers. One, you put your finger on both of them. Number one, all these big names, billionaires, I read about in the paper, many of whom think they should be president.
Well, one of them is.
One of them is. Oh, I don't know if he's a billionaire. Maybe, he won't release his tax returns. We don't know how much money he does or does not have. I don't know. But anyway, they're in the news these days, there are people with a lot of money and thinking they want to run for president and so forth. They're not going to run.
And why not?
They're too comfortable. It'd be too hard. They got a lot of money. They want to subject themselves to scrutiny of the press and negative articles about them. When you run for office, you're totally exposed. It's all out there. You got to just take it and not be bothered by it and go forward.
Got to be thick-skinned.
Thick-skinned, but you got to be sensitive. You got to be empathetic. You can't be a rhino hide guy. But you got to keep your eye on the ball and know what you're working on, and don't get sidetracked by a lot of that stuff. But they're not going to run, none of them, because they're afraid to. They're too comfortable. Now they should, that's not a good word, but if they were to use their resources, they could make a big difference if they really wanted to. But they're not going to. Now, at least Bill Gates has done a bit, but he won't run for office. He's not going to, get out there and really make a big cause out of his stuff. And then your other point about, why spend all this money to help a farmer in Bangladesh because of climate change? Well, that's true, but you got to try. Because when you work on it, even though it might be a problem 20 years from now, you're going to find new technologies. You're going to find new ways to answer that problem. You're going to find something. It just happens. And so I don't think we should shirk just because it's a difficult problem.
All right. Well, I love your optimism, Max. Thanks so much.
Right.
All right. That's the end of our show. We're out of time. I'm Aaron Harber. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Please contact us. We want to hear from you. And thanks for watching.